the US election is a catalyst for your awakening, for it will polarize you all if you let it. Guys, just a quick one before we start the video. I want you to know that as a trans channel, I don't edit it out to look all polished and fancy because I want to be fully transparent, and my team have definitely encouraged me to do this. So please don't worry when you see me doing weird things with my eyes and stuff in this video, because I'm completely safe, everything is consenting, and at the utmost importance, everything is completely wrapped in love. I would recommend doing this one at 1.5 or 2 speed if you like things to be snippy. Alrighty, let's get onto it. So we are in a timeline where much atrocity, you can leave your eyes open for this one. We are in a timeline now. We're just letting you tune back into the energies. We're just going to broadcast you. Okay, so establishing Merkaba and Archangel Michael and Bapus come into this one. And we're just going to expand your energy into the 2024 timeline. And let's go all the way to 2027. We are the Galactic Council of 9 that support Andreas in his transmissions. And we have agreed with him to bring through a signature update for your current timeline. We wish not to speak in specifics, for you must understand that there is only a degree of knowing that we can have when we are not engaged in your timeline, but rather we are observing it. It is the subject of reality that you individually and as a collective co-create it through your free will at all times, from moment to moment. It shifts. It is that the pathway, what we are showing Andreas, is a caterpillar munching its way on a leaf. Now, you might know that the leaf is what it's munching, and you might want to know the exact pattern that this leaf is going to have itself carved, right? The exact pathway that this caterpillar follows. But the caterpillar in every moment is making a decision about which way it goes. And so we can look at the leaf and say, okay, well, we know where the leaf, what the leaf is, and that there's a caterpillar munching it, and that this is likely what's going to happen. This is the direction it may most likely follow. Yet we, at the same time, cannot tell exactly which way it's going to go, because in every now moment, the free will of the caterpillar allows it to choose itself. You see, that's how it works. Andreas is kind of questioning the metaphor, but we brought that through because we know it will support the understanding of how timelines work and how channels are not able to tell you specifics, because we don't know is the truth. No one knows. But what we do know is where the divine will wants to go. We know where the humans have decided that they will play. We know what energetic impacts are taking place on the now moment, and where those energetic impacts will most likely go. And to that, we can say with a sense of certainty, and not with pure certainty, that your heart spaces are going to be very, very challenged in the coming year and years on the earth plane. And we are talking to 2024, 2025, 2026, 7. And we say that you will be facing individual and collective challenges that are going to ask you to step up, step in, breathe into your heart. Because what lies in your heart is a sense of spaciousness, a sense of knowing, a sense of comprehension, the ability to sit with the discomfort of the external world around you. To remember that you are a divine being, to remember that you have what you need, that it will come from you. And that no matter how scary or how terrifying or confusing, perplexing, agitating, infuriating the external environment around you becomes, and we can say with certainty that it will become tumultuous, that you are going to be asked to come back here into your knowing, into your heart, to trust. And what Andreas feels is this Manipura solar plexus chakra activating. That's your power center. There's this coming into your sovereign empowerment that actually is it becomes a necessity because your external environment is going to become choppy, changey, politically crazy, unsafe. It is going to become a place where you will have to work with your neighbor so that you can come together for food. It is going to become a place where you will not be able to do it all alone. Because if you do that, you will feel isolated and you will become isolated. And the timeline that we are moving into collectively is one of collaboration, where every individual is empowered as a sovereign being to show up for themselves and express themselves as they wish to. But ultimately there is this kind of support and wanting to give each other the support you collectively need. And so as in some areas, food is going to become scarce, and now that's not going to impact everybody. And we don't want to create a feeling of fear amongst you. And yet we would say that in some areas of the world, food becomes scarcer. Food supply becomes interrupted. Water supply becomes undrinkable without a sanitation. There will be some places that are affected by natural disasters and other places that are affected by political chaos. Other places will be affected by war. Other places will be affected by fear associated with all of these other things taking place around them, even though they are not actually experiencing the physical thing. But the fear of it happening will be enough. And part of your consciousness has incarnated into where you are or traveled to where you are on the earth plane so that you can experience that specific flavor of tumultuousness, of discomfort, because that will create, once again, the necessity for you to pull inward, to pull into your heart space, to shine that out, to shine the love, the peace, the knowing that you are safe, that you are sovereign, that you are a powerful being, that this is only transitional, that this is temporary, that it won't last long. And through all of that inner knowing, you will be able to lovingly create with your neighbors, with your community, to support each other. Because your neighbor needs something that you have, and you have something that your neighbor needs, you see. That's how you can support each other in this time ahead, is to rely on your neighbors, to trust that you are worthy of that, and to know that there is enough abundance within you to give. And I encourage you, we encourage you, and Andreas encourages you to if you feel unsettled by that news or unsettled by that idea, that you start to reflect upon yourself, because there is a scarcity within you that believes that you are either not worthy enough, or that you cannot trust others around you, or that you will not be provided for, that you cannot provide. You see, that scarcity, that fear, that cannot come with you into where we're going, into this new paradigm that we are creating. They can't come with you. It has to be challenged. It has to be seen. And the only way that it's going to be seen on a mass scale, on a mass level, is if the external environment around you perpetuates that necessity. It asks that, it requires you to do that. Now, there is a natural question which comes through here of, well, what happens if you don't? What happens if you do not open your heart and you do not trust in yourself and your neighbor, and you close down and you look at the internet and you look at the TV and you become scared and you play video games all day because you're too afraid to see what is around you in the world? Then we would say that the world will become scarier. A very scary place to be. It will feel isolating. You will feel unworthy. You will feel afraid. You will be risking going into deep cycles of depression. It is not that you are doing it wrong if this happens. It is just that you forgot. And rather than utilize the catalyst of challenge in your external environment to build you up, to remind you of how strong you are, instead, you hand over your sovereignty to that. And you say, I am not good enough. I do not have what it takes. I do not have love to give and therefore to receive. I cannot. It would be like hiding in a cave, and the cave feels like it is encroaching all on you and compressing you down. The good news is this. There are light workers like Andreas and like many, if not all of you watching, that have come here for many, many reasons, but one of those reasons is to support this transition. Because there are going to be many people that cannot step into their heart because they have never known this. They will try to use their mind to rationalize their environment. And when they can't do that anymore, when the environment becomes so unfamiliar that they cannot piece it together in their mind anymore, when they have not connected to their heart, they will have nothing left to turn to, and they will be in this place of despair. And this is why one of your missions now, it has already begun, is to support, remind people through your actions and your love alone that they are loved, that they are safe, that they will be okay, that they are worthy. There are so many light workers. It's what we are showing to Andreas, which he will try and convey to you, is if you imagine that all of these people are stuck in a dark, dark pit, a giant well, if you will, and they're stuck down there and they don't know how to get out and they don't know what to do. They're just afraid. Each one of these light workers is bringing their hands down into the well to support the other person to grab onto the hand and to pull themselves up. And you can, as a light worker, as a star being, as a star seed, as an indigo, as a whatever you relate to, you can only be responsible for putting your hand into the well, your arm into the well to support those around you. Now, this will be your friends. This will be your family and your community. This may be your wider community if you are online. Or it may be your immediate community, your family, your friends, your colleagues. You can only be responsible for putting your hand into the well at that time. It is them and their sovereign free will alone which will allow them to hold on so that you can guide them and remind them to come back into their heart. But you cannot do this for them. And you cannot make yourself responsible for that. Because if you try too hard to do the work for them, then they will instead try and pull you into the well. And that doesn't come from a place of maliciousness. It is simply when they cannot escape that fear vibration, the only thing that they can do is try and pull people into it so that they have more certainty. Fear loves company. It is going to be important to you as a light worker to connect back into that Manipura, that sense of what is the word here that Andreas has lost? Wisdom. We ask you to pull into your wisdom. Listen to your inner knowing, so that you do not become a martyr, so that you do not overgive yourself to the point of having no energy left to give. It will be very important for you as a light worker to maintain your own energy, your own vibration. And this exists now. This is not some future timeline. This exists now. The well is already here. You can see that around you. You can see the people around you deep in the well, and you can remind them. You can be an example. You can whisper words of wisdom to them, but you cannot force them to grab on to your arm. And you shouldn't, for it is their sovereign free will that enables them to go through the process of ascension. If they don't get that, then they cannot exist in the new paradigm. They won't be able to stay there, because it will be so uncomfortable. It will be so unfamiliar. It will be so scary to them, because they'll still. I'm trying to. Okay, what I'm getting is that my team is saying that I don't have to explain this, but they just want to reiterate here that there is this. Those people that get stuck in the well, they won't come out. They will not come out, and they will leave the earth plane in some way or another if they don't come out. Because the disresonance, the disharmony means that they just won't be able to exist upon the new earth. It will be too much. It will be too unfamiliar. It will be too scary. They won't have the skill set within them. They won't have the trust in people. They won't have the love within them. So to weave with other people in creation and community, it will feel they're so used to scarcity mindset. It's only me, an eye for an eye. I just have to protect myself and my family. They're so used to the tribal mechanics of that they just won't be able to exist upon a higher vibration, which is more about communion, oneness, collaboration, and honoring the individual and the sovereign expression of each person within that collection, right? So the tribal mechanics aren't there. It's not like this dog eat dog, my family over your family, protect my family at all costs. That's very much old paradigm. But there is this wider oneness, this wider sense of community, this wider sense of giving that exists within the higher paradigm. And that is a different consciousness set, because it comes from here and not from here. And the people that are stuck in here, they won't be able to come in here if they don't open it up, you see. That's what feels complete to share there. Is there any more clarity that can be provided to those who are interested in supporting themselves in this shift? And I mean tangibly. Like, give me the things that we can do. You don't have to do anything unless you want to. What comes through here is that the team is saying that actually they're going to ask me to trans channel this rather than me do it, me speak. They're going to speak through me. Just give me a moment to attune to the frequency. We thank you. We thank you, Andreas, for allowing us to come through you and remind you that you are a sovereign being, and that We are you, in that we are just an aspect of your own energy. And as your Council of Nine, we want to express through that you do not need to do anything. Andreas will need to close his eyes more as we come through. You do not need to do anything to prepare for the coming tumultuous times, because if you do, as we suggested before, and stay in your heart space and trust in your neighbor and love and give and receive, you will be very much looked after. And we would say to you that there is a lot of preparation that can, as an option, take place, and will make the experience easier for you. It would be wise to look at ways to purify your water at home. And you may not need to do that, but it would be wise to have the mental safety within you to look into it now. We would say to plant gardens, trees with fruit and vegetables and ways that you can be sustainable. You will not need to be self-sustaining. You will not need to create a bunker. You will not need to dig yourself underground for 30 years and have the supplies for that period of time, because you will have the neighbors and your community, the farmers markets, and all of the things that you do as a collective as your love in humanity opens. We are flooding Andreas with this energy because we want you to know how much love there is within you all for each other. And that often the only times you have seen this come through is when there has been times of crisis. If you reflect on the hurricane or the flood or the volcano or the natural disaster that took place, often it is in these times that the best of humanity comes through, where we support each other, Andreas wants to say, where you all support each other. And we want you to remember that. We want you to remember that in these times, when you step into that place that is already within you of love and compassion, you will give what you can give, and you will be receiving what can be given to you. We need to put this into the conversation to remind you that you do not need to be afraid. You really don't. You do not need to be afraid. And taking that, you are still able to prepare. So we've spoken to you about the water. We've spoken to you about fruit, food, vegetables. Sure, store grain if that makes you feel secure. Store the grain. Buy the water purification tablets. Go to Costco. Buy their $50 survival pack. Do these earthly things. And the best way to prepare is to prepare your heart, is to meditate, is to do the shadow work, is to do the integration work, is to awaken your sexual energy into your heart, to empower yourself. All of these ways that you can come closer into here. Meditation, meditation, meditation. It's such a cliche, Andreas wants to say, and yet we would tell you it's a cliche for a reason, because the more that you come within and the more you still yourself, the less you'll be tuning to what's out there, and the more that you will be able to trust. That's going to serve you the most. So if you were to prepare anything over food and water, we would say prepare that. Prepare that the most. There will be humans out there that decide that they wanted to invest into a petrol generator, and that is okay. There will be humans out there that say, I don't need to prepare. I trust and I know I will be okay. And that is okay. You do not have to do anything. All of those little nudges that you're getting, and we know many of you are getting them, to start to prepare for something, you can follow those threads and you'll be okay if you do not. It's important that you listen to what you need. What do you need to do so that you feel more safe, so that your base level needs feel like they are met to some degree? And you will all be okay. as long as you step into that heart space. The only time this gets hairy for you is if you spiral, as if you forget, if you close yourself off, as we have said. That is all we wish to say on this. Okay. Andreas is weaving in questions of your political time frame. The US election is a catalyst for your awakening, for it will polarize you all if you let it. If you decide that you are for this or against that, you are going to be swept into the polarization that is to take place in the United States of America and further afield as countries receive the impacts of the American election. This is by design, for it will exacerbate what exists upon your earth plane already, in that the you versus me, the us versus them mentality that cannot come with you to the new paradigm. And so, like many other things, it needs to be emancipated. It needs to be seen. It needs to be brought up from the subtext of your world and right up into the focus. And there will be many that decide to get swept into the argument. They will get swept into and identify themselves with one side of this argument. And then there will be a lesson in humanity here. There will be a lesson in knowing that you and the person on the other side have more in common than what you have against each other. There will be two tribes roaring, throwing spears and stones, defending themselves. And then there will be those that watch, that send their love, that help, that try and extend a hand into the well. And just like everything else, they must take the hand, or they will get swept and swept and swept into the fear narrative. And some will go so far and radicalize so much and polarize their energy so intensely that they will experience the suffering associated with that. And then they will come to a point of choosing again. They will be asked, in their own world, they will start to think, should I choose again? Yes. But some people need to go down that road in order to come back to the heart. They must go down that road. That is their pathway of learning. Yes. There are no other things that we wish to tell you in terms of specific events or timelines that are to take place. For the most important one is the US election and the natural world. There are other experiences upon the earth plane, like wars, that will exacerbate and migrate into new territories. But we don't wish to speak to this. There are other people out there speaking to this as well that you can tune into. For us, we feel that Andreas's essence is best able to deliver the pieces of information that we have spoken to. Yes. Is there anything else here that you need us to know? No. Fear not. For something has already awoken inside of you. And that thing is already preparing you for this phase of the human experience that we are in, and that will continue to exacerbate over the coming timeline, the coming months, the coming years. Andreas, am asking, when does this shit end? And what I receive is that it will carry for quite a few years. And what I'm seeing in my awareness is somewhere between 2027 and 2033 is this like softening of the energy. So it's like we hit the 2027 mark, and I see this wave that's building, 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 building. And then around 2027, it starts to ease. We start to see something else, right? So what I see in the timeline, and this is just me, so take it with a grain of salt, but it's coming from my guides. However, what they're doing is they're showing me like, if they're showing me an energy, like if they could graph energetic intensity, that's what they're showing me. And so it's not attached to certain timelines. But the way I interpret this on a human level, which could be fucking wrong, frankly, is that there's this growing sense of tumultuousness and discomfort up to the point of 2027. And this is where we see the political uncertainty, the wars. This is where we see the heightened, stuff around potential lockdowns. This is where we see fear around natural disaster and all of these experiences crescendoing in different parts of the world. And then as we move to the 2027 period, it starts to kind of ease, and it starts to move into this more open, loving community aspect, where that's really starting to anchor in now, and no longer are we in that crescendo of the timeline getting worse and worse. And it wants to, if we just shift it, it wants to start to harmonize. And then we enter this really beautiful integration period where it's like maybe up to 2033, maybe longer. It's like this period of building, creating, reinterpreting and reimagining the world as we want it to be, rather than what it just was and what we thought it had to be, what was given to us, what was forced upon us. As a collective, we are reimagining the structures, we are reimagining the institutions, we are recreating the organizations, the way that we structure our lives as a society, which will be far more nuanced than it is now. What I can see is way more variances, like this place over here is doing 9-to-5 jobs. This place over here is doing, this country over here is doing some sort of like benefits scheme where everyone gets a certain amount of money. This country over here is doing more of a like reciprocity community where they just give and receive. I'm seeing a far more nuanced and therefore sovereign empowered, as in each individual can kind of choose where they want to weave and play with different energies and structures, rather than this kind of like one globalist situation. That's what I can see in the energy when I tune into that. And that's what's going to be very frightening. That's why the people that are stuck in the well can't be there, because they won't be able to deal with something like that. It's just beyond their comprehension and their safety level, right? So that's why it requires this opening of the heart space, which the team were sharing with us before. And that is beautiful, but it's also very much like a we're learning together, creating together, fucking it up, rediscovering, playing. It's very playful. We don't know where we have this inner knowing, but the human aspect of us doesn't quite know what it's going to look like. We're co-creating it in real time together as we rediscover and figure it out, as we allow that fifth dimensional signature to flow through us, right? So that is what is taking place there. I was going to forecast further. I'm thinking, maybe I'll forecast further into this New Earth timeline to see what's coming up. But actually what my guides are telling me is like, I have done enough. My energy probably won't be able to sustain more than that. So I'm going to leave that to another day. But we can absolutely start to look into what is coming in the New Earth frequency from the perspective of my team, knowing that there are many, many perspectives out there and that mine is just one of many. So they're all different flavors and nuances of the experience, right? Which reminds me of that caterpillar deciding where it's going to go in each now moment. And it is subject to change, and it is not guaranteed in one specific way or expression of manifestation. Okay. Thank you so much for joining in today. As always, if you've got any questions, please leave them in the comments below. We will absolutely see if we can tune into what the guy, my team have to say around that. Ultimately, please remember that this is about your sovereignty. This is about weaving whatever I say into your being, into your knowingness. And you do not have to agree with anything I say. In fact, I would rather you listen into your inner self. Far, far more. All right, much love and light to you. I'm going to sign off and we'll see you in the next video.